Todd Pierce. I retired as a major from the U.S. Army back in November 2012, where I'd worked for 5 years, just about 5 years, as Defense Counsel in the military commissions. And so I'm here today to speak on the military commissions process in Guantanamo.
So tell us first what got you started in covering Guantanamo and basically your experiences there and the research you've done and different experiences you've had.
I wrote an article, actually, Guantanamo at 10, wrote it 2 years ago, pointing out where my father had been a prisoner of war in World War II. He'd been on the Bataan Death March. And so I pointed out how offensive it was when administration attorneys had said the Geneva Conventions were quaint and dismissed them. And plus seeing and knowing what was going on just through the news, I determined to volunteer as a defense attorney to go and represent clients there, which I did.
And then we're here at the screening, which you were part of a panel discussion with Andy in Worthington as well. Your thoughts on the film and basically the research compiled in Guantanamo and basically what you thought about it?
Film is excellent, very objective, not exaggerated a bit. If anything, maybe a little understated. One thing, and since the film was made, the report came out by Physicians for Human Rights talking about indefinite detention being a form of torture itself. And certainly that's become more apparent that we're talking indefinite detention that seems to have no end.
The thing that I noticed about it, which was interesting about the film from my perspective, was the idea of doctors and how important they were, which I never really thought about until seeing this film. Basically, maybe tie that in for people who haven't seen that yet about how important doctors were involved in basically sanctioning torture for Guantanamo detainees.
Well, all this, whether the doctors or the lawyers who wrote the illegal opinions justifying it, we're all part of the systematizing this torture, and we're essential to give it a veneer of legality. Without them, the administration probably wouldn't have been able to get by with it. But because of these professionals, they provided that air of legality about it, and we've got what has occurred the last 12 years.
Just to wrap it up here, where can people find your work and coverage of Guantanamo? Anything else you'd like to mention about sources that people could find interesting to find more about it, Guantanamo?
Andy Worthington produces some great material, and he's tracked this from the beginning. So first point would be to check out Andy Worthington's website. I'm now writing more, and if you do a search, Todd E. Pierce, my middle initial, a couple things might pop up. I've written a little bit, and what my interest is mostly on, really focused on, is our losing the right to know through the legal changes that are taking place, losing our First Amendment rights, and that's I don't want to say my bigger concern, but it's a tremendous concern, and as much as Guantanamo itself, because it's spilling over, that legal regime is spilling over into our domestic system, and we're losing constitutional rights, and that is what people need to really be aware of as well. We're losing our constitutional rights because of Guantanamo.
One thing, just to wrap it up here again, you mentioned the NDAA and how this basically was a prelude to that. Maybe go into that and what you mentioned in the panel discussion, how it ties in together with that.
Just very quickly, under Section 1021 of the NDAA, which is the subject of a lawsuit, Chris Hedges v. Obama, provides for military detention for enemy combatants, people who are deemed to be suspects of being terrorists or associated forces, a very ambiguous description. So, and as the government admitted in the Hedges v. Obama lawsuit, just speech alone could cause someone to be held, under military detention, pending disposition of law of war. It basically cuts the First Amendment out of the Constitution. As long as somebody says, well, this is a suspect for terrorism, or maybe as associated force, and that's a meaningless term. That can be anything that the executive would deem to be an associated force. So again, it truly is a threat to our Constitution.
My name is Martha Davis, and I'm a psychologist who developed this film with a team of professional filmmakers. It's about the role of psychologists, physicians, psychiatrists in the torture.
A classification review, and the government decides what can be made public and what has to stay secret. And that process ends up leaving out a lot of stuff that I would want to say about the treatment of my clients, how they're doing.